Oh, it's the folder. It's the folder. I've got the folder. It's an Anorak moment. Oh, it's an Anorak moment. In this folder here, I just want to share this with you guys. I should have done it the other night, but we weren't really in the mood. I've got all my A5 bits of paper that I've had for years. I mean, I've got it all on internet and stuff like that now. I've got little kind of. I've actually got a blog, an entire blog that I wrote about the European finalists. But if you can see that, that's for example, that's my international, my list there of the international teams. There's 55 UEFA nations and it's 55 national teams. I've only got 6 left to go. It's 49. If I get to 50, that's going to be so significant. Switzerland, that's the biggest one. Like we get Montenegro, Kosovo, Luxembourg, Andorra, Azerbaijan. That's a bit, but Switzerland is a big one there. I could tell all the stories I could tell you about not being able to see Switzerland. But this is the why is it A5 paper, Alec, that looks like it's about 50-year-old? Because it is about 50-year-old. I first drew this up probably about maybe 40 years ago. We'll not go through that again if you watch the pods the other night, the 40-year thing. But that's the list there of all the European club finalists. That is Tipex. That's Tipex on the bottom. That is paint. You see the paint stain underneath the Oopum of the old Juventus away top. I do love my stats, my European club football, but I don't get that excited about it. But if you see, I was going to do it in front of you guys, but it's kind of hard to manage it with having to hold the microphone. But the AS Roma, if you can see that there, AS Roma. I've got the score through them. Why have you got a highlighter, pink highlighter, and a score through them? I think what happened there, I can't remember why I do that. When I get them, when I see them, I score them off. So 106 European finalists, and I've got 26 to go because Roma were 80. So I think obviously you'll be delighted. That'll have changed your view on what happened the other night against Roma. You're like, oh, Big Alec, he's up to 80. The fat Anorak get that he's up to 80 clubs now. He's seen 80 of the European. I'm happy for him. It was a win for somebody. It was a win for somebody. That was the target I had my crosshairs fixed on, was getting to 80 European finalists that I've seen. But I think what happened, I drew this list up. Obviously, it's been getting longer as more clubs reach European finals. But I drew it up probably when I was like 15 when I went to see Rangers against Inter, my first European game. And I think at some point, it was Zagreb, it's NK Zagreb, or the other team in Zagreb, right? NK Zagreb, and they played Partick Thistle. Is it late 90s? I think it was mid 90s, actually. In fact, I was only in my early 20s. And NK Zagreb played at Firhill in the Intertoto Cup. And I was still staying in the Dross, well, not really. But anyway, I got on the train, I went up to see that game during the summer. So I went to see NK Zagreb. But there was a kind of, I think it was the time Dinamo Zagreb had become Croatia Zagreb, and it's before the internet was like on your phone and stuff like that. I don't think I even had a laptop or a computer at that time. It was, you couldn't, nowadays you could, no excuses for not knowing the capacity of the stadium and every trophy that NK Zagreb had won and the goalkeeper's mother's maiden name and stuff like that. But then it was like, is it NK Zagreb? Is it Dinamo Zagreb? Don't really know who Partick Thistle are playing, but they're definitely coming for the capital of Croatia. So I'm up to see that, and I think I scored it out thinking it was Dinamo Zagreb who reached European finals, but it wasn't. It was NK Zagreb. So I then probably went about thought, well, that's like I'm scoring off a team that I think I've seen. If it's just got the pen, the biro line through it, and if I get the highlighter through, 80 teams. How you doing, folks? This is your FATEC. Rangers this calendar year have been to Istanbul, which is Constantinople, the capital of Byzantium. It's Byzantium, the Hagia Sophia, which was the start of the Eastern Orthodox Church, Christianity in the eastern part of the Christian Empire, 1453, just before 3 o'clock, the Turks get in there and they take over and they put the minarets up round about Hagia Sophia, which Hagia Sophia changed architecture actually, and they turn it into a mosque, and that's the extent, that's at the heart of the Ottoman Empire. And then we also, the beginning of this was at July, we go to Athens, we play Panathinaikos, and we go over to Athens, on the heart of civilization again. The Romans was later on. You're jumping the gun here, you've got Rome in the head because it's your 80th club, but the Greek civilization civilization, that's the heart of the democracy started. Then you get your philosophers and all that kind of stuff. Greece, the Parthenon, the Elgin marbles. We were there, and then the other night it was Rome. The Vatican's there, the Catholic Church is in Rome, and it's the ancient Roman Empire, the heart of kind of Western European civilization and all this stuff that happened there. And this Sunday we're going to Dundee, which got us Ooooh, the Bruins, and Alan Rankin and Billy Mackenzie from the Associates, so it wins as far as I'm concerned. I've had, I think, 5 nights. I stayed in Rome, never been to Athens, never been to Istanbul. Have to rectify that, but had 4 nights total. I think 3 nights last October, 3 nights in Dundee. Just a holiday in Dundee, and a couple of years before that we had 1 night in Dundee, and I'm telling you, it's touch and go between Dundee and. You think I'm kidding? You think when you go to Rome, you know what you're getting. When you go to, there's so much tourist stuff and all that. But as a boy from Drogheda, very much a West Coast. The Stevenson Masonic supporters bus would just take you to Dens Park or to Tannadice. I've only been to Dens Park and Tannadice a couple of times, maybe 2 or 3 times at most, in the train. So I saw a bit of the city of Dundee, but I really knew nothing about it. It's very mysterious to me, Dundee. Whereas Rome, it's sort of like the Colosseum, the Circus Maximus, and all the Vatican City that's inside Rome. And Giovanni Trapattoni, the manager of the Vatican City, it's because Jose Mourinho was manager of Roma when he won the Conference League, and I meant he'd won all 3 of the European trophies, 4 if you want to add the Cup Winners' Cup, and Giovanni Trapattoni also won. Udo Lattek as well, with Bayern and Borussia Mönchengladbach, and he's at Barcelona as well. Udo Lattek's that where he won the Cup Winners' Cup. He won the three European trophies, so you can see that Mourinho's the first guy to win 4, but the first guy to win all 3 was Giovanni Trapattoni, who played for Milan in the 1963 European Cup final at Wembley. And I've talked about Rangers' European defeat. I'm deflecting. But Vatican City, which is in Rome, you see Rome, you've seen all this stuff in Castle St Angelo and that, and it's been talked about forever. You watch Roman Holiday, for example, the film, stuff like that. So you know what you're going to see. Being there still amazing. It's mind bending. I would definitely recommend going. It's a fantastic city. I talked about that extensively this week. But with Dundee, I didn't know anything about Dundee. And yet I'm in the same country. I just really didn't. It was a mistake. And Dens Park in Tannadice is almost enough. Mythical street in Scotland. But when you go to Dundee and spend a night, it's quite a place. It's gothic. Dundee, having a few nights, and I ended up getting a great. If you go down my the videos on this, if you go into the homepage, the Fat Ek 1999 homepage here, this YouTube channel. One of the most popular ones, it was because Rangers get beat. I think it's got like 6,500 views or something. It's the thumbnail, isn't it? My fat face with the specs, which is my USP, fat face guy with specs. It's a picture of a kebab. It's basically my face is a mountain to that. You get gammons, I'm more of a kebab. Because I've eaten so many kebabs, but actual proper kebabs. A Turkish restaurant in Dundee. Never been to Constantinople, but that was getting pretty close to the most Turkish experience of my life, outside seeing Turkish teams in Europe at Ibrox, and the Turkish national team. I don't think I've ever played at Hampden, the Turkish national team. I don't think I've ever played in Scotland, the Turkish national team. But I saw them at the City Ground, Nottingham, losing to Portugal. 1-0 at Euro 96, and I saw them at Hillsborough losing to a Brian Laudrup-inspired Denmark during Euro 96. Sorry, folks, I'm just trying to deflect from getting on to talk about what we need to talk about. So my name is This Is Your That's the Pod, and it's sponsored by Gersnet. Yeah, Gersnet every Friday at 9 p.m, live on the YouTube channel, every Sunday 9:30. And this week's Gersnet Fridays was Ben and it was Scott, two guys who love the Rangers and know their stuff. I've not had a chance to check it out, but you should. Guaranteed to be cracking chat from them. They'll be reviewing the Roma game and all the fallout from that, and all the fallout from last Sunday as well. Sponsored by Gersnet, and I'm also sponsored by HSBC, the Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation, or whatever it's called. But I saw an advert from them today. I was going into Morrison's to get my. I was going to go and get my rotisserie chicken just out of habit, but my wife actually got it for me in Tesco last night. It's one of the things you go, all right, thanks. I thought, you can't say no, thank, because I might end up getting it. It'd go in a different orifice for where the chicken usually goes in for me over a weekend if I wasn't. But it's a kind of weird feeling. I like to go along and just kind of pick up the chickens and test out the ones that, oh, that looks better. It's got a later sell-by date, but it's not as big. That one's got a closer sell-by date, but it's not, that one's maybe not as fresh, but it's bigger. And it might take weight up, but she thought she was doing me a favour about this one. So I was just going for a six pack of the McCoy's steak, the flame grilled, and a couple of tins of soup. It's big. It's just a traditional thing I do on a Saturday that there's no a game on. I like to go and get myself some supplies. It's a kind of comfort thing, just walking to Morrison's, and it stopped raining for a bit, and I was walking along. And if you know Morrison's in Annie's Land, just go along to Herschel Street, and I'm coming through, like, if you like, the kind of Byres Road end of Great Western Road, and I'm heading towards Annie's Land Cross. You're going under the railway at Annie's Land Station, really, before you turn up right to Herschel Street, just at Gennaro's. Like, across the way, you get the Witherspoons, you get the epic Esquire House is over the other side of the road for me, and in the car park at Esquire House, up towards where it hits the railway, it hits the bridge with the railway, the bank in there, they've got this massive advertising hoardings, electronic advertising hoardings. So there's about, I don't know, a dozen different adverts in the space of 2 minutes. They got this constantly changing, and in a dull day, it's really bright. It's like a massive telly. Talked about this before, like most of the things I mentioned in this pod, and I'm just walking along, and I'm on the other side, just going past the houses, the flats, the old bingo hall with the old cinema, the Art Deco thing. It's been, and you just before you can turn up the road, the access road up to Annie's Land Station. And you got the is it Bauform, the place is called? It's kind of play on Bauhaus. This place that sells, I think it's kitchens and that. And then the other side of the wee road, you've got that, what's it called? Something Bowl, the Chinese carry-out place. I should know the name of it. I'm too busy looking at the menu usually, but I think that's HSBC advert. That said something in that. Did that say? But I think it said that big HSBC advert. And I thought, but it flashes onto PLZ soccer or Brayhead or an advert for something else. I can't stand there and look at an advert, like a moving advertising hoarding. That's the first time I've seen a moving screen. I look like a head case, but just coming towards me at that point was a guy with a fella at least mid-70s, probably hitting his 80s, wearing a full-length, head to the ground, purple trench coat. And this is like pristine. It was glowing. I'm not talking off blue or anything like that. It was like purple. He's wearing a fedora. His fancy kind of shirt. I'm sure he had a cravat, and he's got a stick. He's walking with the aid of a stick, and he's got purple shoes. Purple shoes, not Purple Rain, Fiorentina. It's purple shoes he's actually got. Weren't they oversized? It wasn't like clown shoes, but they were purple. And I'm thinking, where did he sell purple shoes? And he's walking towards me, and I'm thinking, if he's walking about looking like that, nobody's going to be looking at me, stopping to look. I swear to God, this happened the day this guy's walking towards. I don't know what he's up to. Maybe a magician in retirement or something like that. It could have looked like Doctor Who. Maybe he's going to a convention or something like that. So I just thought, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to be looking at me. So I stopped and I watched for this advert to come round again. And what it was, it's an HSBC advert, and they're doing that. There's a few of them, different ones about your retirement, and they're going to look after your money. HSBC is going to look after your money. But the one that caught my eye was the picture was two kind of students hugging at their graduation. They've got the and they're chucking their hat, and they're hugging each other because they've graduated. And it said, HSBC, we know wealth is giving them a better start than you had. Giving them a better start in life than you had. We know wealth. That's what you want to do. Man, I thought, how insidious is that? They're emotionally blackmailing you into giving you money to them, HSBC, so they can get the interest off it. Because you should give it to your kids. And I don't have kids, but I'm very much in favour of the attitude of fuck it, get it spent. So Andrew Kavanagh, don't be bothering saving your money for your wains. HSBC, RFC, because we know wealth is having Rangers fans thinking that you're all right. And the way to do that is spend it now. Spend it all now. Don't be saving any for your wains. You must be absolutely minted. Health insurance in America. Give us it all now. Apart from anything else, I'm sick of listening to folk in the last 2 days, in the last 48 hours, I've heard this. January's a difficult transfer window. January's a really difficult transfer window. No, if you fork out 40 million, it's no. Just go, Lawrence Shankland, just go to Hearts and say, there's 10 million down. Give Lawrence Shankland a £5 million, off. You've got money to burn, Andrew. Just give him £5 million signing on fee and promise him 100,000 a goal. And just do it. Just throw the money. You've got the money. Spend it on us. Spend it on us. Are there more needy wains in your life, Andrew Kavanagh, than the Rangers support? I don't think so, but we are easily pleased. Spend, and spend again this January. Turn it into, this is something we could achieve. You could get a reputation for being the guy who had the most successful January transfer window in the history of football. Everybody thinks it's a nightmare. No, if you just try to get guys to Rangers, so that's obviously scaled down already. The level of player that you need isn't as great as what, Arsenal or Juventus or Real Madrid would need, in the January transfer window. But they have a greater effect on us, a much more massive effect. So just go in there and just fork out and get 8 players in, £5 million each, something like that. Just spend an absolute bundle in the January transfer window, because that's the deal with it. That was me. I'm sponsored by HSBC. My name's Alec Anderson. Well, I'm going away to live. Won't be back no more. Going back down south, child. Lord, don't you worry about woman, I'm trouble. Being all worried mind. Well, I just can't be satisfied. Just can't keep on crying. Well, I feel like snapping, pistol in your face. Gonna let some graveyard, Lord, be your resting place. Woman, I'm troubled, all worried mind. Yeah, I never can be satisfied. Just can't keep on crying. I can't be satisfied. Because my name's Alec Anderson, and I'm here to talk to you about the lack of satisfaction that we got from the SFA when it came to the semi-final last week. I'm here to talk to you about the trip to Dens Park, Rangers this Sunday, 3 p.m, live on Sky. I'm here to talk to you about the massive thumbs down that the Rangers Coliseum gave to a few of its directors, while Emperor Kavanagh looked on from his royal box, thinking, should I let these guys get iced right in front of us? The first thing I've got to do is the snagging list. I'll do the snagging list from the last pod of things that I missed, things I didn't say. Number 61, come on for Rangers. I was going on extensively in the preview pod for the Roma game, then during the post-match reaction for the Roma game, saying how Roma played their first European final in 1961. Rangers played their first European final in 1961. It was Tav's 61st appearance for Rangers in the Europa League group stages, equaling the record for a one-club man in the Europa League proper. But I forgot to mention the fact that number 61 was a substitution for Roma, and they brought on their number 61. That's the coincidences are there. Dovbyk and Simakis. If we were going to get beat 2-0, I talked in the preview pod about how I'd seen Simakis scoring for Greece against Scotland at Hampden a few weeks ago, and I'd been at Hampden as well when Dovbyk scored for the Ukraine against Scotland in a World Cup playoff semi-final, and 11 months before that I'd been at Hampden when he scored against Sweden in the last 16 of Euro 2020. So if they had to win 2-0, could the two of them scored the goals? Neither of them scored. That's quite frustrating. And also, this protesting against Romans. There's Romans in the stadium, but we're protesting. We're the Protestant club. Take some history for this fixture, for this moment. It's massive protest. It's probably the biggest protest I've ever seen against actual people in the directors of Rangers. I mean, well, that game against Hearts, I suppose we were kicking the doors in and actually going to pull them out with their throats. And that was Mike Ashley's goons. That was pretty cool. That was pretty it's pretty crazy. But the other night, kind of concerted, organised protest against people. It was they got a bit sick, to be honest with you, with the targets going on in front of their heads. But that's your job. The Protest. That's where we get the name Protestants. Martin Luther, 1517, the church doors at Wittenberg. I mean, we only had the one thesis, which was win. We're no winning. Why are we no winning? That was our thesis. We didn't have the 95 thesis, but we nailed it. We certainly nailed them to the proverbial church door, or the double doors at the front on Edmiston Drive, whatever you want to call. But that's a protest. It's the Romans that were playing. Romans are in the stadium. It was Rome. It was the Babylon. It was protesting against Rome, and the what is it? What are they called again? The what is the the stuff that when you go to you're supposed to go to heaven, but you go to purgatory and you're kind of waiting in the waiting room for heaven, but but indulgences, plenary indulgences. That's what protesting against that and 94 other things was Martin Luther, and the first Protestant was a Catholic, just like your first Christian was Jewish. It's just life's crazy, but that was quite a big moment the other night. I didn't realise. I forgot about that. It was staring me in the face, that one. It was really obvious the kind of allusion to make from that. It's we're playing Rome, we're playing Roma, and we're the Protestants, and we're protesting. Also, the other thing that stared me in the face, or maybe it wasn't, I mentioned the fact that I've seen up on the big screens that Roma's kit, which despite being an away kit, despite being the choice that I least wanted Roma to play in, so I could feel as if I'd properly seen them, it was a really Giallo Rossi type of kit. It embodied everything about Roma. It was still a very Roma kit. I said I'd noticed that it looked a bit darker when it was up on the big screens, the Jumbotron screens, so it might look different through the cameras. And watching bits of the game back, I recorded it on TNT when I got back into it and watching it back. It's a Wolves kit. Almost literally, Lupi, that's one of their other nicknames. No, the Wolves, because Romulus and Remus, the foundation myth of Rome, they suckled on the she-wolf to keep them alive. But so they are nicknamed the Wolves, and it's a Wolves kit. It's the old gold. They've got the old red with their home kit, and it's a kind of all gold looking. It's just watching it replay, especially Adidas. It was quite a smart kit. Even though I think it's a composite of but it's Wolves. It was totally Wolves. I forgot to mention that. Anything else I forgot to mention? No, I'll go into boring stuff about Dundee. I'll get the silly stuff out the way, folks. You can just fast forward to the real deal, the real analysis. Dundee. We're going up to Dens Park and Tannadice Streets. As we know, Sandown Street joins Tannadice Street in the two. So Roma, the last time they played in Scotland, was they played at Tannadice, didn't they? And this is, they've gone for Govan. We're going up to Tannadice Street, if you like. There's a wee link there. But I was making a big deal with the fact that Dundee United had lost to Roma in the European Cup semi-final in 1983-84 season. I remember running home from school to watch the second leg live. Was it John Holt that missed an absolute sitter, which would have put Dundee United through in away goals? Dundee United tried to get in the final European Cup, not only missing out by a single goal. Quite amazing stuff. Very controversial second leg. The stuff that was... anyway, that's what the Italians are like. But Dundee United did beat them 2-0 at Tannadice, so they've always got that. They got the semi-final of European Cup. Dundee United at Tannadice, they beat Roma 2-0, even though they went out over the two legs. Well, Dundee, just over 20 years earlier, Dundee only won the league title once, same as Dundee United. Very symmetrical records they've got, Dundee United, as well as very symmetrical grounds being in the same street. But Dundee get gubbed 5-1 in the San Siro by Milan in the 1963-64, no, 62-63, because Dundee won the league in 1962, and so 62-63 European Cup. They lost 5-1, I think, in the first leg in the San Siro, but they beat Milan 1-0 at Dens Park. So you're going to a ground tomorrow where, and Milan was the last club that Roma played before they played us the other night. They played at San Siro themselves last Sunday. So so Dundee and Dundee United have both beaten Italian champions in the semi-final of what is now called the Champions League on their home grounds. That's quite cool. Or Milan, as Emma Dodds was calling. I love Emma Dodds. I think she's brilliant. I know. Don't do that. It's no. And I know she's no interested in any kind of blow. Well, but that's all horrible. I hate when a patter starts. It's not because Emma Dodds to me is Rangers 55. Her and Neil McCann just presenting. None of us could get to the games. Rangers TV, and they're bringing it to you. It was tremendous. And she just got it perfect. Emma Dodds. There's no ego there. There's no fear of anybody either. She's confident and she's right down to earth. But that's why I probably noticed she was giving it a big licks with the Milan, Roma, who played Milan the other way. And this is, I remember Clive Tilsley. I think it was Clive Tilsley, maybe John Champion, ITV Champions League coverage years ago, saying it was a game for the San Siro, and let's dispense with any of this Milan pretentiousness. I'm thinking that's fair dues. It's AC Milan. I'm like, I don't call them AC Milan over there. I mean, they don't call them AC Milan. They call them Milan, but the Italian accent, where you print because of the Italian. Italian for Milan, the city of Milan, is Milano. And Italians pronounce the I like an E. So they call it Milano, the city of Milano. But it's a big thing for them that they use the English word for Milan as the name of their club. They just call them Milan. It's Milan and Inter. Inter and Milan. Not Inter Milan. Inter and Milan. Inter, that's the two big clubs that play in the San Siro, which they've both just bought so they can knock down and rebuild. But anyway, so... But strictly speaking, for us, it should, because they're founded by an Englishman. As always, it's always an honour of the used to be a Milan the football and cricket club. We all know this stuff. So Emma Dodds giving it Milan. I thought it was quite fun. But then she then went on to say Tifo and Copland. Great Tifo in the Copland Road. What's going on, Emma? And I think what she's doing there, because Tifo is that's what we call it. Tifo, even spell it with an I, because it's Italian. It's coming from the ultras. All very Latin and whatever, non plus ultra, that kind of stuff. But I think what she's done there is she's remembered Shakespeare, The Tempest, where it's Milan. It looks like Milan on the page, but the place is called Milan, and that's how you pronounce it in the Shakespearean tradition. So she's gone in there and she's realised she's done Milan, and then to compensate for that, she's overcompensated with Tifo and Copland, the Copland Road stand. So that's the... Rudy Voller. I'm talking about Rudy Voller there. But this is coming. That's Dundee. I'm linking it. It's segueing. Come on, this is smooth. Rudy Voller. Dundee. What's he got to do with him? Well, Rudy Voller, I was talking about him, how the reason I've always wanted to see Roma, apart from them getting to European finals and stuff like that, is just in the fact that they're massive. This game I saw in 1989 where they hit the post playing against Juventus in Serie A, and I've had the video for years, and I put up the YouTube link under the preview pod going on about how the roar was like the roar of the Colosseum. That's Rudy Voller, and in the very same way, he hits the post against Juventus beat them, doesn't score a goal, but it's the roar when the ball comes back. Oh, this is beyond an ooh and an ah. You can just hear the whole history of the Colosseum and the Circus Maximus in that roar, is what I was wanking on about the other day in that preview pod. But Rudy Voller, of course, in the very same box, like a year and a half later, gets brought down by Néstor Sansini of Argentina in the final of the World Cup in 1990, which leads to the penalty. Andy Brema scores it. That's the only goal of the 1990 World Cup final. So he gets brought down in the same box. Rudy Voller, who scored the 1986 World Cup final for Germany, even though they lost to Argentina. Rudy Voller, who won the Champions League, the European Cup became the Champions League the first season. It was officially the Champions League. Rudy Voller wins at the Olympic Stadium. And Rudy Voller in that season, the Olympic Stadium in Munich, as we know, because it could have been quite easily have been us that was in that final against Milan. Rudy Voller wins it, but his very first match in the Champions League, Rudy Voller, the first, I don't know if Marseille qualified directly, I can't remember the situation for them, but the Champions League group stage, the Champions League proper, as they call it, match day one, the very first match day one of the Champions League, well, there's only 4 ties played, one of them was at Ibrox. I was there, so was Stephen Pressley, and when Rudy Voller put Marseille 2-0 up just after the break at Ibrox, it was through a square ball from Stephen Pressley. Stephen Pressley, who's beaten Celtic at Dens Park this season, drew with Rangers at Ibrox, took 2 points off us at Ibrox, but get beat 4-0 at Tynecastle last week. First time they've conceded goals via corner, he said, and he did it twice at Tynecastle last week. I wonder which of the clubs that he played for, Stephen Friendly with Hearts Pressley, feels most affinity to. But there you go, that's a wee thing. But there's 6 degrees of Stephen Pressley. Stephen Pressley was playing the time I went to Murrayfield in Scotland, just kind of unluckily, but isn't it always unlucky against the All Blacks? Everybody loses unluckily to the All Blacks at Murrayfield. I've not been to the rugby at Murrayfield, but I've been a couple of times to see Hearts playing in the old UEFA Cup group stages to get Anorak hits, once against Schalke 04, 1997 UEFA Cup winners, and once against Ferencváros, who we will be playing. We'll be playing in our next away game in the Europa League group stages, and Stephen Pressley played against Ferencváros that night. Ferencváros beat them 1-0, that put Hearts out. I was there, hiding my accent and all that, and covering myself in sauce just to make sure I fitted in. And Michael Stewart also played in that game. So it's the Ferencváros next club. Stephen Pressley play Dundee in the UEFA. What about Dundee in Europa League, Alec? Well, they played in the UEFA Cup. I saw them, and I actually went to see Dundee. That was the other game I went to see in the Intertoto Cup. I saw them playing FC Sarted, as they were called, in a club from Serbia in the Intertoto Cup. So the first time I went to is it the Bobby Cox is the away stand at Dens? the other one's Bill Shankly. Or was it Bobby Cox, the home one, and the Bill Shankly's the away one? Anyway, the first time I sat down in the away end, at the traditional away end at Dens Park, having gone there for years to stand in the terrace, and it was to see Dundee playing FC Sarted of Serbia. They'd never been a European final, but it was just something to do. It was in the summer, as I say, and but they qualified for the UEFA Cup, didn't they? They beat off Perugia. Dundee, that's it. They've never been in the Europa League, but they did get to the semi-final. Dundee United get to the final of the 1987 UEFA Cup, and Dundee, the forerunner of the UEFA Cup, was the Fairs Cup. Roma won the Fairs Cup in '61. Dundee got to the semi-final of that in 1967-68 season. Leeds beat them. I think it was 1 each at Dens, and they get beat 1-0 at Elland Road. But that's like that. You go to Dens Park, you go to Tannadice Street. It's European history. They've both played in the semi-finals of the European Cup and the UEFA Cup / Europa League / Fairs Cup. The two of them played in the semi-finals of that, both those tournaments, and Dundee United went one further and got to the final. And the final of a European trophy tournament has been played in Tannadice Street, just in Dens Park. Okay, we better get into this. Of course, they've been managed by Tommy Gemmell, or is Robert, a Celtic fan who gets in touch quite regularly. Good guy. He gets in touch with the pod quite regularly. And I made a point in the podcast, the preview pod, about how when Roma won the Conference League, the very first Conference League in 2022, it was Nicolo Zaniolo who scored their only goal, and I thought he was the guy who had most O's in his name to scored in a European final. And later on the pod I was talking about, we're playing at the Stadio Olimpico, Roma come from the Stadio Olimpico. We're not playing them there, that's the new format. But Phil Neal had scored twice. He'd scored in two different finals of the European Cup, two different European Cup finals. Phil Neal scored in the Stadio Olimpico. 77, Liverpool beat Borussia Mönchengladbach. 1984, when they actually played Roma. They're playing at their home stadium, Roma, in the European Cup final. And I said, what an amazing achievement. But I had to mention the fact that Tommy Gemmell, so I didn't look too biased, Tommy Gemmell, of course, of Celtic, scored in two different European Cup finals. But one was in Lisbon, one was in Milan. But it was in the same stadium, but that's quite an achievement. And Robert got in touch, and he just said, most of those, he just got in touch and said, what about Tomasino Gemmalotto? Tomasino Gemmalotto, and I'm looking at this post going, what's he? Tomasino Gemmalotto, and he knows the stuff I go on about. Oh, is it Don Tomasino? Is that Don Tomasino's? Because that would be sickening, because it's like Vito Corleone, but you call him Don Vito. Oh yeah, right. So I didn't know that. He knows his Godfather really well. So maybe, and it's kind of Gemmalotto sounds quite kind of a Calabrian or whatever. It sounds, like he's coming from the Neapolitan, the Chimera or something. Maybe that's where he's come from, and that's why he can't really stop the guys getting to Michael and getting to Apollonia, and he's like, no, that's Tommy Gemmell having most O's in his name. He was just having a wee joke, but I'd overthought it, and I'd actually made the point that he was. So that's Celtic fans just making a fool of me all week. So if we beat Dundee in this match this weekend, that will be the three results we have been claiming since 2021. In fact, maybe perhaps since we come back into the top flight in 2016, that we most want. We will have beaten Kilmarnock, we will have beaten Hibs, and then we're beating Dundee. These are all the fixtures in which we usually slip up, and we've maintained that that's what's been costing us the title. Beating Celtic's no problem. Beating Hearts, you've got to throw them into the equation this season as well. So that's one thing. That's one extra reason to be winning this game, so that we can look at this and say, yeah, okay, they're stripping it all down to build us back up. The 49ers conglomerate, whatever you want to call them. Andrew Kavanagh, Parag Marathi, but this is what we wanted. This is what we claimed we wanted, and it is what we claimed we wanted. This is why last season nobody was giving a monkeys about the success in Europe. We all enjoyed it at the time, apparently, but it also happened when we got to the final in 2022. I would constantly encounter Rangers fans, usually online, saying, who cares, we didn't win it, it's all about trophies. I'm thinking, you're either a Celtic fan pretending to be a Rangers fan, or you're a Rangers fan who Celtic fans have got to. With it, they're never going to give you praise for winning anything. They're never going to give you praise for. You can't. Rangers being successful does not stop Celtic fans besmirching your successes, particularly in a workplace environment, a work environment. So we got down to a point where it was people were actually saying, Europe's a distraction, it's no good enough, it's all about the league. Well, and of course we've been, last Sunday was the first time Celtic have beaten us the calendar year 2025, and it was after extra time against 10 men. Strictly speaking, 90 minutes, it's a draw, if you like. They didn't beat us over 90 minutes in the whole of 2025, so they're not the problem anymore. Hearts definitely becoming a problem. But this should be it then. This should be it if we actually, getting to doing well in Europe, getting knocked out in the quarterfinals. That doesn't get you a trophy. It doesn't get you a Champions League place. You don't appreciate what you have. That's the thing I'm worried about. If the protest the other night against Andrew Kavanagh, or against his employees, it's getting closer to Kavanagh. The 49ers were getting mentioned in one of the banners. We were going for the targets on the heads of people he's employing, the people the 49ers enterprises are employing, but we were just kind of talking to a wee bit of communication being opened up there with the banner and the govern put up with the ICF, but not really going for, but ultimately it is him, it is Andrew Kavanagh and Parag Marath who are employing these people. They're venal, they're total. The guy made his money through health insurance in America. He's not going to, he doesn't need us really telling him this isn't good enough. He knows it's not good enough. He knows what's going to work most profitably for them. They're here to sell Rangers. Hopefully years down the line after masses of success. I don't think we need to worry about that kind of stuff. And I think sometimes at Rangers we need to stop. I've got a whole series of personal opinions about what happened with David Murray, and I feel as if there's a desire among some Rangers supporters to, seem more involved, seem more committed, seem more loyal, and maybe an attempt to make up for the fact that they weren't there, in the days when things were bad, back in the 80s, and that's all long gone now. That was my kind of badge of honour, and it was unfair as well because I was so young at the time. I was never going to do anything else but follow Rangers. But we've all been through stuff since then. But I feel as if there was maybe people having to find problems and proofs. And there's definitely no doubt about it. It's the most massive problem in our history when it came to the EBTs, etc. But I feel a desire to go for people within Rangers sometimes goes OTT. I feel we have to appreciate what we have. Sometimes cost us. No, it's not. It's when you spend poorly on players, that's how we're losing these games. That's why we're in the league. But at what point do we take responsibility? We, the supporters, we keep screaming at grown-ups to do it for us. Give us money, give us proper, spend it properly, do it. We're the only kind of consistent presence at Rangers since 2012, I would say. We're the fans. We're the only ones that have been there consistently. Until we can get fan ownership, and I don't think we're capable of properly fan owning. We had the closest we're going to get to that last season. The people that were in charge of the club last season, it's got to be people with money and a genuine love for the club. These people have no genuine love for the club in terms of Kavanagh and Marathi. They're just here to make a profit, and that should suit us as well. In the same way, Steven Gerrard was here to get a stepping stone up to eventually getting the Liverpool job. When it suited both parties, that's absolutely fine. But no, I feel we might go a bit OTT when it comes to demanding stuff from people who do have the cash. Eventually, we're going to end up scaring them off, just making it no worth their while. Let's say what it is. Putting sights on people, targets on people, crosshairs on people's heads. You're saying you're going to fucking shoot them. I'm not taking it that seriously, but it's a bit out of order. But what Roma did to us was kind of like what should happen. We're not destroyed by them, and what we're trying to do as a team on the park is abundantly clear, even down to the change in the formation at half-time and the substitution made at half-time. We're just got a kind of pro forma squad right now because we're at the first stage of a rebuild, which is clearing out the dead wood. That's what you get rid of this is what we wanted. I keep saying this is what we wanted. The screams I've been hearing since we won the league in 2021, and it felt like 2 minutes after we won the league in 2021. Get rid of them all. Get shot of them all. Bunch of losers. Remember that bunch of losers? Lundstrom, Goldson, Tav. That was about 2022 that started. A bunch of losers. Get shot at a lot of them. And I got to clear this is Gartner. The howls when Cyril Dessers missed a chance last season, the season before. Get him so far to France or Panathinaikos, wherever he wants to go. Just get him. Well, they're getting rid. But you're supposed to replace. We didn't add on. We shouldn't have to add on the bit that's like, but replace them with people who are even better. Replace them with people who are better. We can't handle the reality. The stuff that we've been shouting about, the process that we're demanding in the abstract, I feel as if we can't handle it in reality. And don't get me wrong, I'm the same. And there's nowhere that says you have to come in and to rebuild a squad, you automatically have to tear it to pieces and have complete diddies in the squad. Like, you've got to go through some, you've got to impose complete amateurishness upon your team. No, but I think it's inevitable when you try to completely rebuild something and all right, so it's going to weaken the squad, but we'll get some loan, but we'll get guys in who've been, changing hands for like £5 million between Brentford and what have you. We'll get these in Bournemouth and that. We'll get them in. They should do the job. I think that's a fair enough policy. They should do. They haven't. Everybody's just in the door though. Everybody who's running the club and playing for the club just now. Don't get me wrong though. I felt exactly the same the other night. It hits me bad in Europe. I loved the other night as a fixture on its own. You might have noticed that. An Anorak point of view, from a football fan point of view, it was tremendous to see Roma at Ibrox. Roma and Ibrox, but in another version of the kind of Groucho Marx line, "That's no lady, that's my wife." I'm not a football fan though. I'm a Rangers fan. That's what I'm. Even if we'd only qualified for the Europa League this season, this is the first time we'd ever qualified for the Europa League group stage. We'd been finishing in mid-table for the past few seasons or something like that. Where we are right now would be humiliating anyway. This is nothing to do with but this run we're on, it's absolutely mortifying. We're 7 straight defeats in European competition, and then our situation in the Europa League group stage, we're bottom of the table, 4 games played, 4 games lost, 0 points. We've scored 1 goal. Aside from that being a kind of a club record, it's because it's a club record of failure. That's all pretty humiliating. But to follow directly after a season in which we reached the Europa League quarter-finals and had legitimate complaints about the officiating in that quarter-final. We went out to La Liga giants, Athletic Club, a huge club, by 2 goals, having had, held them at home with 9 men, and really, we know what happened in the first half of that game. Athletic should have been down to 10 men. We should have had a penalty. To have gone from that scale of, genuine, glorious failure, or we failed gloriously, to what we're doing this season in Europe, it adds a level of kind of hurt and pain, which, to be quite frank, is the number one sign that Rangers are again dragging ourselves away from 2012. This is how we progress. This is how we move forward. The ice age of the 4th tier domestic football has inevitably created floods of kind of meltwater. It's ravaged the landscape. The ice domes have gone, but the water levels are rising violently, and the permafrost has spread so far and wide that no amount of caribou and reindeer droppings can inspire the growth of vegetation in some of the most kind of northerly parts of our landscape. And even if they did, you're going to end up getting the tree canopy coming up. The trees are just growing wild, so they're actually blocking out the sun, and it's only round about the edges that you can actually do any hunting for anything. Sorry folks, it's just Roma had me thinking about antiquity, and after we lost that game the way we lost it, I'm now going further back for my metaphors, but a bit of prehistory tonight. If Dundee beat us, it'll be the Big Bang Theory. Probably I'll start doing Stephen Hawking's stuff, but got DNA. Why not just go right to the core of stuff with the metaphors? If Rangers keep getting worse, I can see the other half of Crick and Watson just died. No, it's Crick and Watson that discovered the makeup of DNA, the double helix, a double act. Double helix, your dogs. Boys, I'm just desperate to find any kind of different way to express what we need, that we need to be calm. We need to be calm as a support. Active, yes. Not letting anybody away with anything, yes. Being totally critical, yes. But it just gets a bit pylonish. It gets a bit. We need to stick with this. We need to stick with it. The 49ers. We don't want them to be scared away, and we don't want to be scared away from supporting the club, by the inevitable after effects of a seismic event. 2012. This isn't a hobby, this is our lives. That's what the banner said. Well, there was about 8,000 empty seats the other night, which implied that some folk don't take it that seriously. £44 a ticket, mind you. But performative kind of fundamentalism, performative seriousness is embarrassing. I think the banner just saying, look, this is no hobby for us, this is our lives. That's fine, but threatening folk. Ice Age, they had the Ice Age, was it, I don't know, was it 35,000 BC? See, I think by the time it had melted, it was like 11,500 BC, not up the north, up in Scotland. There's nobody in Scotland at all. But then after that, I think it starts. There's another, there's a few millennia where there's plenty of hunting going on. There's plenty of the animals start moving north, so they bring the hunters with them, and folks start populating Scotland. But then there's another. They call it the cold snap, which is quite ironic. But there's another ice age. So it's peaks and troughs. It goes back and forth, and there's a major event. Don't make me go through my list again. Just don't make me go through my list of examples of why Rangers are when we're setting a record for some failure in a particular tournament. It comes after a success. I mean, the 49ers the takeover itself is a big success, and it usually means there's another one just round the corner. Since their kind of holding club, their holding company entered liquidation in 2012, and our club entered the Scottish Football League 3rd Division, nothing has gone smoothly. No win hasn't been preceded by and followed by a huge humiliating setback. I'm not going to do the full list, but you get like 2016 Scottish Cup semi-final. In the April, we beat Celtic. As a championship side, we beat Celtic. That's us, we're back. Fantastic. Beat them in penalties, it's great. A month later, we Hibs it against Hibs. In the final, last January, this year, we finished 8th in the Europa League group stage. The first season of the Swiss system, we qualify automatically for the last 16. Second season the trot, we've managed that, having finished top of the group, the 4-team group the previous season. That was in January. In February, Queen's Park Pit is out of the Scottish Cup. That's, 2022, we get to a European final. 2021-2022 season, we get to a European final. October of 2022, we're setting a record for the worst ever performance by a team in the Champions League. We're a penalty away from winning the European trophy in like the May, and by the kind of October, we're getting it. And it's debatable whether it was the worst ever, but it's certainly, we've lost all 6 games, and Liverpool put 7 past us at Ibrox. This is just the way it goes, and just now, like last season or the season before, into last season, under Clement, we set a record for avoiding defeat away from home, a Scottish record for avoiding defeat away from home in Europe, incorporating like a 4-1 win in Nice, drawn at Olympiacos, beating Malmo, and our first ever win against Swedish opposition, home or away, and we beat Malmo in Malmo. That's tacking on to the drawn 0-0 against Sparta Prague, beating Real Betis in Seville, drawn with Benfica at the Stadium of Light, going 2-2, ding-dong draw again at the Stadium of Light with Benfica, and we bring it up to, and we only lose that run against Manchester United at Old Trafford with a goal in injury time. That's amazing, and it's almost gone straight into this season. We're going to set a Scottish record for successive European defeats, home or away. That was 7 in a row the other night. We're heading for 8 in a row. Protest as supporters, despite the fact we can tell ourselves, us putting money into the club, as paying our season ticket, and that gives us a kind of control over the club, and it does. But I think there's a feeling, a kind of lack of agency amongst supporters. We don't really believe that we've got that much agency in a lot of ways, especially in the days of television coverage and the advertising that comes with that. There's other things, other major money that can really support the club. But Andrew Kavanagh is venal. He's venal scum, to be quite honest. It's no Saudi Arabian money. It's not coming from a country in which they behead people for being gay or for being a woman, basically. But this guy is not going to mess about. He's not going to fail to get rid of anybody who's not performing within his organisation, because they've spent a lot of money. They've spent the best part of 100 million already on just buying Rangers in the first transfer window. They're going to want that back and then some. So I don't think we need to worry to the extent where we're threatening directors, Thursday had me kind of debating the provenance of the phrase "took a bit of a chasing," because we were literally chasing all game. We were the ones that were taking a bit of a chasing. Yeah, he took a bit of a chasing, took a bit of what does that mean? Like, we got chased away? Like it's a fight or something? There was a battle and we ran away, we get chased. But it was like the other night in Fitba, we're the one doing all the chasing, and it's just, they're just stroking the ball about, it's quite embarrassing stuff. Roma were, well, it wasn't embarrassing, but we really weren't at the races. Roma were barely trying. Sule goal, the first goal that they scored, Magoma conceding possession. We managed to win the ball back. Nico Raskin wins the ball back, and we're stroking it about at the back, just trying to find a way to get the ball forward. And Magoma, it was criminal. The fella Celik is right on top of him, but he just got to put the ball up the line past him, and the guy cuts out the pass, and the next thing, Giga just kind of, not lazily, but he sticks a foot out to block it, and that's the corner. And then at the corner, Giga is asleep. We can't out jump anybody. With their heads, they walked it into the net for that first goal after 13 minutes. And the Pellegrini goal, the second goal, the last goal of the night, it made it 2-0 about 10 minutes before half time. They passed us to death, or at least to sleep perchance to dream, while the centre forward, the guy with the big number 9 on his back, and his reputation and his records and his video footage, no doubt, all over the Auchenhowie media room over the last 4 days, he just walked through the middle of us like a Celtic captain taking a quick free kick at Hampden in a League Cup semi-final. It was absolutely woeful. John Souttar letting Dovby... Did Souttar play in that World Cup semi-final, the World Cup playoff semi-final at Hampden? I was at the game, I can't remember. Dovbyk scored in that one as well. He should know about the guy. It was really, really poor. Let's just try and park that just now, because we've got to go to Dens Park, and we've actually only lost one league game this season, Rangers. That's AKCHOOALLY. Actually, we've actually only lost one league game this season. But Danny Röhl came in and gave us 2 straight wins. Just so happens we're in the league, but it's also 2 straight wins, full stop. Russell Martin couldn't manage 2 straight wins in the league this season. It's only Hearts. Hearts are the only team that have lost fewer games than us. They've lost 0 games this season. We've lost 1 in the league. So at the start of play, I don't know what happened, but we're Hibs away to St Mirren, and that could definitely affect us. I think Hibs are ahead of us in goal difference, perhaps. I think we were at 5th by the close of play. Falkirk got a point today, so I think that took them above us, maybe Falkirk. But we were at 5th anyway. I don't know if we can go any lower with what happens with Hibs. I don't think so. But I think the highest we can get tomorrow is 3rd. We need to win. But Danny Röhl got us 2 successive wins, something we hadn't managed all season when he arrived in October, and they were both league wins. He's also the only guy to get 2 straight defeats, though. Russell Martin didn't put together 2 straight defeats in his short time as Rangers head coach, and the Celtic defeat is after extra time. I say moral victory, because as we know, as well as playing with 10 men for over 80 minutes in that League Cup semi-final last week, which I think bled into the Roma performance as well, if I'm being fair. And we should, that's what I'm preaching here, a bit of context. But the key match incident, but the SFA's key match incident panel, in a Sky Sports News bleeding obvious news flash, breaking news, I think it's not really breaking, we kind of knew anyway. But the key match incident panel of the SFA decided by a majority of 2-1, 2 Protestants to 1 Catholic, no doubt. They decided that the incident should have been referred back. Austin Trusty gently kicking our prone goalkeeper on the head. It should have been referred back to the VAR, should have referred it back to the referee for an upgrade from a yellow card to a red, and it was definitely a penalty. The penalty that we got was definitely a penalty, and that's so that's absolutely nobody will believe that, and no one of a Celtic persuasion will believe any of that. The fact it was only 2-1, wasn't a 3-0 majority, shows that there's doubts, and no one of a Rangers persuasion will be in any way comforted by that. I am, though. I don't think we don't want to do this, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. What's the point of these things? Seeing folks say, what's the point of that? The point is that we keep holding them up for censure. Just keep saying, they have to keep admitting, I like the fact that the SFA do this. I like the fact that the referees have to they put together the wee programme listing all the mistakes and what have you. We've got to get a grip of ourselves and say mistakes are going to be made, because so much of football refereeing is still subjective. But the stuff that shouldn't be subjective, the stuff that the VAR should be going in and helping with, we've got a programme that highlights that. Because if you start just going back to, I don't want to know because I don't... we know who's got, your enemies will abuse that. They'll take advantage of that, and we should take advantage of it as well. But it just becomes unrelentingly political. It's about who can apply most pressure. I forgot to mention that Giga, having said he was asleep at the goal we conceded, the first goal we conceded the other night, he saved Asgard. Asgard comes on at half time, sticks his foot out, turns round and just plays the ball straight to a Roma player, almost from kick-off. Did Asgard almost put Roma through in goal, but Giga got in there and nicked it off him, so that was absolutely fine. But yeah, that was a big... It's too late now that the game was played last week, but it's been too late. A couple of Rangers. When's the last time Rangers had a really terrible decision going against them in the League Cup at Hampden against Celtic? I mean, it's at least 11 months, So I don't know why we're all upset about that, but just keep just push for change, push for improvement. We need to get more money into the refereeing in Scotland. 2 straight defeats Danny Röhl has had, strictly speaking. I think we're 5th in the league, but Danny Röhl has trebled our number of league wins since he arrived. He's got a 100% SPFL Premiership record, and that record is something we can cling on to, something we can help turn this frown upside down with if we maintain that 100% league record going into the international break. We need to save and kind of augment the Danny Röhl feel-good factor. There's a feel-good factor around him, if not the club as a whole, because he will lose that. If he doesn't win, it's not just if he draws at Dens Park, I don't care what the circumstances are. If we don't win at Dens Park this Sunday, then Danny Röhl will not have that feel-good factor around him. The punters with the jerking knees will be coming for him as well, I would think, and he's going to have 2 full weeks to do it. Dundee themselves, we look at Dundee, they've had their own American money for about 10 years now, I think, haven't they? This Texan investment in them. They may be a notable example of trying to fail upwards. It seemed that way anyway when they sacked Gary Bowyer, who got them back up into the top flight. He was in charge for this one season, Gary Bowyer, the Englishman, when they get promoted at the end of 2022-2023 season. Remember they beat Queen's Park at Oakville View that Friday night. That game was on live in BBC Scotland the Friday night. I watched that. It was a great game. 5-3, 5. I was wanting Queen's Park to win it, but up they went, Dundee, and they immediately sacked Gary Bowyer, probably because it went down to the last game of the season. Tony Docherty comes in. Now, what if he'd stayed with Derek McInnes? Would he be at Hearts? Would he be enjoying the potential to win the league? Tony Docherty, I don't know what happened between them, but Tony Docherty comes in, and in his first season in charge, he takes them into the top. He takes charge of them when they're back in the top flight, and he gets them into the top 6. Great achievement. Following season, last season, he only avoids dropping into the relegation playoff spot in the last game of the season with that heroic win at McDermott. Heroic in the shape of young Lyle Cameron, who plays for ourselves now, but that wasn't enough to stop. That wasn't convincing enough. So Tony Docherty gets a sack and ends up the Championship anyway. Now manager of Ross County, who did go down at the end of last season. So they bring in Stephen Pressley, Dundee, and he's got them second bottom just now. So rather than consolidating the top 6, he's got them second bottom. But after today's results, that's not tonight's, I don't think anything else can affect Dundee until we play them. They're 1 point in front of Livingston. 1 point better off than Livingston, who are at the bottom of the table. Dundee are second bottom. They began this season by not qualifying from the League Cup group. Alloa and Airdrie finished above them, and Alloa and Airdrie both beat them. And it was Stephen, and they lost their first league game of the season at home to Hibs. Apparently, were awful, and the knives were out early doors for Stephen Pressley, who has been roundly mocked. Sorry, you're having a hard time managing your football club in need of a massive result. Come to Rangers, and we'll see what we can do for you. Comes along to Ibrox early on, their first home league game of the season. Totally outwits Russell Martin, out-tactics him, even though we went down to 10 men. It was a very creditable draw for Dundee. I think it's the first time they'd avoided defeat at Ibrox for about 20 years. So that was the turnaround. No, really. They've beaten Celtic and they've beaten Livingston, both at home. That's their only wins this season. They've lost 6 of the previous 11 league games. Losing at home to Dundee United and Hibs. That's the only home defeats, I think, in the league. But we one of the 3 draws they've had. I say they're only 2 wins. They've been against Livingston and Celtic at Dens Park, and the latter win partly doing for Brendan Rodgers. I can't mock Stephen Pressley's physical appearance. I can't mock anybody's physical appearance. Look at the state of this, an absolute nightmare. And it's no the hair. It's his. I mean, I would love to be his kind of hirsutes and thin and stylish as Stephen Pressley, but it's not the hair. It's his voice and the anoraks, which of themselves are really. I mean, his voice is great and the anorak's great and that, but just the combination of all those factors. That's why he looks kind of weird, doesn't he? And it's a kind of funny look in a childish sort of way. It's no nice to walk in his appearance and that, and a far better man than I'll ever be, Stephen Pressley. But we can't lose. We can't lose tomorrow because we won 4-3 at Dens Park last season. We can't lose them on Sunday. Always say that, Alec. That's don't make your pods time sensitive. But we won 4-3 at Dens Park last season. That epic under Barry on the Saturday night with big Cyril Dessers scoring the winner. I slagged him rotten all game for missing all the chances. Scores the winner. Just now we've got Chermiti. But we drew the two previous trips to Dens, which were ultimately disastrous when put together for Philip Clement, who one of his first games in charge of Rangers was a 5-0 win against Dundee at Dens midweek, a delayed game in the sodden rain with the away stand on fire. It was on fire and it looked absolutely fantastic. Probably contributing to the fact that we're not allowed to do our Remembrance Sunday tifo for this game, but that's what we want again tomorrow. We want Danny Röhl just to set the place ablaze in a footballing sense and a nice, easy win, a bit of a performance. A tall order, though, after the week we have had. Dundee, a free week, of course. And they get gubbed 4-0 at Tynecastle last week, so they're going to have something to prove as well. Or they're any kind of feel-good fact, getting ahead of themselves after they beat Celtic. That's been knocked out of them, and they've had a week to think about it. Nothing better than them having Rangers, a tired and under pressure Rangers who are probably really looking forward to the international break. Need to be careful here. Need to be careful. I mean, Gasperini, he won the Europa League in 2024, and Danny Röhl, his post-match presser after that was congratulating an experienced Roma side, even though Gasperini was manager of Atalanta when they won it. But he was pushing the kind of learning narrative again, Danny Röhl, talking about the belief, and it was down to two moments, one at a set play and one at transition, and intimating that Roma didn't really do much else to threaten us. After that, somebody told him in that presser that we looked beaten before we started, and he contested that point. He said we were tired from the League Cup semi-final. He cited the problem of slow starts. He did say we're starting games slowly. Did that at Hampden. Did that again the other night. Need to make sure that was a blow to us. That maybe made it look like the heads had gone down. But it's not a bigger job than he first thought. He knows exactly what was required. Somebody was putting that to us. The narrative was there from the press guys. They're trying to build up this attitude, this atmosphere that it's all gone to pot, it's all a disaster, because you can't have grown up real stuff where things don't work smoothly and there's setbacks and then it's all got to be sugar or shite. But it's not a bigger job than he first thought. I thought this was really interesting. He was talking about his focus now being on Sunday. And he would take 3 wins in a row in the league. At this moment, we see where we are and we know where we want to go. And basically, we're not good enough to beat Roma, but my job is to make us domestically strong again. This is what we wanted. And I think maybe Kavanagh and Marathi have come in and they've looked at it and they're doing their data analysis. They're telling us they're going to be data-led in their approach to the game and their approach to what they're doing with us. And if they're looking at news cuttings, know that anybody ever looks at news cuttings these days, they're probably on the internet and they're getting local knowledge. They just want to be able to beat the low block. They want to be able to beat everybody else. The teams, it's between us and Celtic, and we want a Rangers team that can beat everybody else. That's where we've been falling down recently. We want to win the league. Right, okay, we're going to strip this down. Might take a season. And they've found out, oh no, we can't cope with that. We can't cope with the mess that you make when you redecorate the house. Just want to go to bed with the old decor on, and I want to wake up the next day and all the rooms have been painted and decorated, and you've got the fancy thing with the telly that looks like it's implanted inside the wall and all that. We want all that done, no mess, no inconvenience, overnight. So they've found out that we don't want to be set back in any way for even a season, even with the carrot of knowing that we could be winning, successive titles for a decade if they get everything up and going. Everybody's saying it's going to take more than one transfer window, but we don't want that. We don't want more than one transfer window. But I don't know. But he's saying he's going to increase our ability to compete with intensity for 90 minutes. Danny Röhl, the head coach, is saying this just now. And this chat about at this moment we see where we are and we know where we want to go. There was a kind of focus there in the Dundee game, which I hope there's nothing to do with injuries. I haven't heard any injury news from Rangers. That's why he's taken off Gassama, who scored 5 goals for us in Europe this season. He's our only European goal threat, Gassama. He took him off. He took Raskin off, our number one heroic player, was more important than the head coach. All through that nonsense with Russell Martin, he's taken the two of them off after an hour against Roma, which intimates to me that he's just bin the European thing, or bin it against Roma anyway. It's all about the league. This is what you guys wanted, so we're getting it. I mean, I'm quoting him. I'm not saying this is what you guys. I'm not saying you guys as opposed to me. We're on the same page here. He's totally convinced we'll get the right direction if we keep working. This is all his pattern. This is all Danny Röhl's pattern after the Roma game. He won't get drawn in the January transfer targets. He's not talking about the January. Everybody wants to talk now about how, because we're going to shoot these guys. We're going to shoot Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell. If, Andrew Kavanagh, it's like one of these scenes in a kind of earthy, trying to be different cop movie where Rangers support we're the bad guys. We're the drug addicts, not trying to rob a bank or something, and we've got the 2 security guards hostage. Or we've got the 2 cops, the guys who've worked all their life with Captain Kavanagh, and we're holding guns to the head going, you better drop your guns and get your guys out of here, we're going to shoot your colleagues here, we're going to fire ahead, on you go. Oh my God, he's not been intimidated by holding people hostage, but I think he's not going to. It's like we want the money. We want the money in the January transfer window. Get it spent now, or we're going to execute Kavanagh and we're going to execute Thelwell and Stewart. I don't think that's going to. And the head coach is not getting into the January transfer window stuff. He wants to do more training to improve what we have. He's obviously going to use the international break to improve what we have. Jack Butland, he then on Friday morning spent about 20 seconds talking about the charity. He was allowed to talk about 20 seconds about the Rangers Charity Foundation that he had on his T-shirt, the Rangers Charity Foundation T-shirt on, and then he ends up sounding like a co-manager or some sort of not under fire director, maybe an ex-manager or something. We had his general manager who's allowed to come in and just kind of be diplomatic and was just take the questions. He dealt with them well. He's saying a lot's changed at the club in terms of players, and it's not an excuse, but it's a reality. This is when people were trying, can I say it's a disaster, isn't it? That result against Roma, it's just proved it's a total disaster, and people were citing the stats I've been citing. The journalists at this presser yesterday on Friday with Jack Butland, so you're heading for 8 defeats in a row. No Scottish clubs have ever done that in Europe. And he says, well, yeah, I can't dwell on the stats of this European run compared to last season, because that's how it's been framed towards him. You did so well in Europe last season, Jack. It must be humiliating for you. He says, we can't dwell on the stats of the European run compared to last season. Just got to take it one game at a time. Just got to concentrate on the game in hand. But I think you should. I think you should look at the stats of this season compared to last season in terms of the points not gained compared to the points we gained last season, and just recalibrate. Maybe a bad word to use, considering the targets getting put on people's head, but just recalibrate and say, if we get 1 point, we just need to get a point on board. That's your first target. We can't be finishing this group with 0 points. You get a draw at home to Braga, you're a bit of a hero already. If you just we're not qualifying. We are not qualifying, I would say. So just focus on getting some pride back. That's the target for me now. Get a victory. Get a couple of victories. Beat a couple of these teams. Target Ferencváros away and Ludogorets at home in particular. But you get Braga at home. We should be able to do something against anybody at home. Porto away, who knows? But so if you get a point on board and don't be carrying around any more the burden, it seems clear that Danny Röhl is kind of writing off Europe as well. So write off qualification. But you've got to play for the jerseys. You can't have humiliation hanging over you. But also at the same time, it's now a benefit that you don't have the burden of needing to qualify. You're like, right, once you lost the first 2 games, it becomes, all right, so we should win this game, we need to win that game, we're kind of behind. We're behind now, we need to catch up, and that always kind of slows people down. You get out of your bed late in the morning, you're catching up yourself all day. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Your work's been cancelled. You don't have to get to work on time, because we're not qualifying for the knockout stages of the Europa League. It's just about getting points on board. beat Braga, that's it. You're a hero because you've avoided a grannying. You've avoided us creating a Scottish record that nobody wants. He's talking about the journalists, of course, couldn't wait to talk to him about Trusty booting him in the head very gently last Sunday. He's very diplomatic about it, handled it well. Jack Butland, he said there was no malice, as far as he knew. There's no malice in it, but when he watched it back, it was later than he thought, the tap in the heads, and he was disappointed that the result it came to. That's the result it came to. He didn't say he should have gone, Trusty should have got a red card. Very diplomatic. But he said, I think I share the views of the majority on it, which was quite pointed and nicely put. He was walking the tightrope between making the point and sounding like a conspiracy crank, and also trying to make sure he wasn't going to get in trouble with the SFA. So I don't know if that's two tight ropes and he's walking between. It was skillfully done anyway. He wasn't having the word toxic used about the atmosphere at the game the other night, the Roma game. The fans are entitled to vent whatever kind of woes they've got at whoever they want, and he's had to take it as a player. I think he was enjoying the fact that his director's getting it now and not him. That's something we shouldn't forget. The fans are right behind the head coach and the players now, as far as they can be with those players. But he's had his fair share of it, but he wasn't going to have it. That it was a toxic atmosphere. He's talking about the tifos and all that the fans put up. What a tifo! I'll just say it again. It was a phenomenal tifo the other night. I'm going to go the semi-final against Leipzig. The bullfighting poster that had me in tears. That was just, it nailed it. It was perfection. Not as complicated. It was very intricate, but it's not as complicated perhaps as a tifo we had the other night. But that for me was a killer. That tifo before the Leipzig game when the Union Bears were still in the Brimlin. I think the Souness with the shotgun on May the 4th, that was class. That was absolute class, particularly for the meltdown it caused. That's why we want murder Patrick Stewart, isn't it? And then I loved the one last season against Athletic Club at home. I didn't know what it was. I can't make it out properly because I'm in the main stand, almost level with the Copeland, so I'm looking across it. I can see all different colours, and it was fantastic. There's quite a lot of colours involved there. And when I got back home and I watched the game back, and I saw it was the UEFA Cup trophy, I nearly cried. It was in the different colours. We're trying to get like the onyx at the base of the trophy. It was gorgeous. But that the other night was, I'd say that goes second. I say that goes second behind the Leipzig bullfighting poster. The famous bullfighting poster that we all know about growing up, Rangers playing Moscow Dynamo and Barcelona. It brought home that night what we're on the verge of doing. We're going back to Spain, obviously, but 50 years since it was phenomenal. Recreating history, reminding you of history, and then telling you we're on the verge of repeating history here and making history in the process. It was phenomenal. But I thought the other night that the Gladiator, it was tremendous, and the way the background was all set up. Great tifo, Emma. So he wasn't having the toxic thing, and it was pretty sick. Another journalist was asking him if putting the directors' heads and targets, putting crosshairs on them and these banners, these posters, was going too far. And it is, I'm a fan, I'll say it is going too far. As a fellow Rangers fan, yeah, I think it's going too far, But try to put a wedge between the players, between the goalkeeper and the fans, by making him saying it's going too far is out of order. But he handled it really well, Jack Butland. After that, in that presser yesterday, it was all Jack was talking about picking up the younger players after the defeat, kind of geeing them up for this game, not worrying about anybody. If anybody wants to write them off, that's fine. I thought just going through the kind of normal stuff. Nope, right at the end there was another hack having a go at the Trusty incident, trying to make it about Nick Walsh. He cited the incident with Diamandi at Tannadice, where Nick Walsh, despite advice from the VAR, still sent off, saying that Diamandi didn't mean a slap at him there. His slap hadn't connected. So that slap hasn't connected. Nick Walsh still sends the guy off, whereas Trusty did connect, kicking the guy's head, but he didn't send him off. We know about this, but trying to get Jack Butland to say it is well out of order. He's not going to. Jack Butland was just saying he's not going to go into things about individual refs. He did seek clarity from the referee at half-time in the tunnel last week, but he's very diplomatic, Jack Butland, and he just said that he thinks this Sunday's referee against Dundee will be good because he's not Nick Walsh. I'm going to go with the 4-2-3-1 that we played after the break against Roma. I'm going to have Butland in goals. Tav at right back. Suter and Cornelius, please, Giga, no. Get Derek Cornelius back in. Suter and Cornelius were centre halves. Magoma at left back. I know he has his moments, but I think he's mostly going to be going forward. Hopefully, mostly going to be going forward tomorrow, and he's good at linking up once he gets into the opposition half. And Tav, of course, back at right back, but I'm hoping he's going to be going forward and doing his thing of getting into midfield, etc. Sitting two of Raskin and Barron, but I wouldn't be bothered if Diamandi come in instead of Barron. Mikey Moore, Asgard, and Gassama. No. Mikey Moore, Asgard, and Gassama, and the three sitting behind Youssef Chermiti. Right, he's going to be the one up front. He's going to start. He's going to start scoring. He's going. I kind of lost it a bit with him the other night, but it was just frustration at the general situation. It's going to turn. It's going to turn for big Chermiti, and he's obviously needed by Danny Röhl for the system he wants to play. And if we're only going to go with four at the back in the Alex system here in the Fat X system, then yes, we need Chermiti up front. The three across, maybe we could have Danilo in. Danilo in at the kind of number 10 position, sitting behind the striker. He's scored in his last two league games. Okay, so it's going to be, I'm going to go 4-2-3-1. It's Jack Butland in goals with 4-2-3-1 in front of him. Tav, Suter, Cornelius, and Magoma. Raskin and Barron. You're sitting two. In the three of Mikey Moore on the left. Danilo in the middle, and Gassama Mikey Moore on the right. Danilo in the middle, Gassama on the left-hand side, and Youssef Chermiti up front on his own. We're going to win 3-0. My score prediction is that we win 3-0, and Youssef Chermiti gets 2. Youssef Chermiti is going to hit the target. That's what's going to make sure there's going to be no targets on the heads of the directors. God, I hope we're slicker than my patter in this game. I'll see you after Dens Park Troops.